Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching The Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences. We'll get on with the show in just a minute, but first a quick word from my sponsor. As a fellow gamer, you'll understand this is unacceptable. The solution? Head down to my new sponsor, Kiender.co.uk. Kiender stocks many of the hot new releases as well as some old hidden gems. Free delivery on orders over £30, further discounts on bulk purchases, and even 5% of your spending refunded back to you as points to be used for further discounts down the line. If you use the referral link in the description below and sign up for a new account, you'll get 5% discount on your first order over £60. So let's make gaps in your collection a thing of the past. Get down to Kiender and start saving today. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the video.
Get on with it.
Do you have any idea how hot it is in this room right now? Blimey, I hate the summer in the UK. It is so hot. Gotta keep the windows closed and I'm roasting. And I've already done one of these videos already, but hopefully I'll survive through the second one. Stupid summer. Bring on the winter, please. I want my coldness. Please give me my coldness. Anyway, I digress. This is another Keep or Cull episode for me, so this is where I go through my collection and decide, are these games worth hanging on to, or are they a potential for the Cull pile? Not necessarily I'm going to get rid of them now, but if I need to replace it and I need space, because most of my games are a one in, one out at this point, particularly at this size, then I have to consider whether these ones are going to get replaced. But this is kind of a jack of all trades shelf actually, because I don't own many games by most of these publishers. I've got two here from Queen Games. I think that's the only two I own. I only really now have this one from Board and Dice at the moment, if we're not including Books of Time, but that's, well, we'll see how that trends when I do that as an eventual review. And we have Abyss, which is from Bombix Games, which I think is the only game I have from Bombix actually. So this is kind of like a mixed bag in terms of games, but certainly there's some games here that I bet a few of you have not played. A couple of you might not even heard of a couple of these ones. Certainly two of them I think most of you should have heard of. The question is, what are my thoughts and are they keepers or not? So let's pop this over here, out of shot. Oh, there we go. All the way over there. Right. First up, Rune Stones. Have you heard of this game? Probably not, because even the publisher doesn't do a very good job of advertising this game. You go to their conventions at the moment and all I see is Marrakesh and all the Steffenfeld City Collection, as if I care. This is the one that you should be publicizing, guys. More people need to buy this. Rune Stones is a pure deck builder game, and I love deck builders. This is a given. This one is just so underrated though, from Rudica Dawn, and how rude of you to do that. But this one looks gorgeous. Yes, I have pimped it up with some E-Raptor like overlays and that, but you know, it's got gorgeous artwork, it's got simple rules. I've got two expansions in here, and the idea with this is that basically you have your deck of cards which are multi-use, but what you're trying to do is that you're collecting these little gems in order to buy little artifacts in order to score points.
Whippy!
Okay, that doesn't sound exactly very, shall we say, exciting. But here's a couple of twists here. So first off, the cards are multi-use. You either play them for their abilities or you use the mana cost of them in order to buy more cards. But the other twist is the cards you play have an ability on each, and when you play cards you must play two of them, and they are numbered, and when you resolve the two effects, the one with the highest number is trashed from your deck. It's gone, like it's done. The other one stays in your discard pile and can come back again, but one of them goes away. So these decks self-trash. Most games you have to go out of your way in order to trash cards. Games like Dune Imperium I give a hard time because before the expansions hit, there blatantly wasn't enough ways to trash cards in your deck, and even then it's still not ideal. But here, it does that job for you. So you have to buy more cards, otherwise you'll end up with a deck of nothing by the end. But the other twist is every time you trade in for artifacts, the more different ones you do, the more points you get. But every time you do it regardless, you get these Rune Stones, hence the title, where you basically get a special ability for the rest of the game, and you can have up to 4 of these. So do you try to get more points but less of those cool abilities, or do you get more of these abilities but less points as you do the artifacts? And the game is just straight up. Buy cards, buy artifacts. There's your actions, do one of them, done. The expansions, they add little extras, you know, little other ways to get points and cards. The first one, the Banshees one, whatever it's called, you know, is pretty easy auto-include. It's like barely anything. The second one, the Enchanted Forest, gives you a bucket load more Rune Stones. but then that track with the whole like moving your animal familiars up it is, I can take or leave it, but you can leave it out as a module. You don't need that module if you're playing with like other stuff, so I usually just leave it out unless I'm desperate to include it. But this is such a fun game. I've been shouting the praises of this one. Super simple, a cool twist. It's not just a generic deck builder. As I said, I've already explained the unique selling points of this. Looks gorgeous, it's well produced. You know, is it flawless? No, but to be honest, it's still a fantastic deck builder. One of my favorites. I love bringing this out to show people who have never heard of it before, but it came out, barely got any buzz at all, and then it just disappeared to the point where Queen isn't even trying to publicize this much anymore. Seriously, people, get in on this. This is a keeper for me. This is a deck builder that I am actually excited to show other people because they've not seen it before, and when they realize the little tweaks that I'm telling them about with the whole play 2 cards and trash one, they start lighting up. It's like, ooh, this is different, and then they really get into it. Are there better deck builders? Yeah, I'd say so, but still one of my favorites, and I'm just one of the few that ever talks about it. Seriously, let's have more love for this game, people. Right, now here's a big one. Whew. Teotihuacan, I believe that's how you pronounce it, because let's face it, I've heard about 20 different ways of pronouncing it. City of Gods, Daniel Tassini. This is basically the flagship of the board and dice range, although at this time they were called NSKN Games, I think. I can't remember if that was the same publisher or a different one, but yeah, I got this quite a while ago, and the game itself, big sprawling Euro, and I have pimped this up. I have got all the expansions for it. It's got fancy bags. I can barely fit everything in the box because there is so much for this game now. Resources, all the different little pieces, different tiles, boards. I have got baggies. I have got, you know, unique stuff. I've got expansions. You name it, it's in there. Now, the game itself, good fun. Solo mode by David Turksey, which is a bit too complicated for me, but you know, it's still pretty decent solo mode, and I enjoy the multiplayer game of this. It's long, it's got a lot of rules, it's a bit on the fiddly side, but it's a good fun mechanism of moving the dice around this board and using them to trigger actions at different power levels depending on the die value, but the die values kind of ascend up in value as you go around, and once they get to a point they ascend and become like, you know, you get more bonuses and the like. The theme is kind of whatever in this. Yes, you build this cool pyramid thing in the middle, but that's just more visuals as opposed to theme. But here's the problem. This is one of the examples where bloat has ruined the game a bit, because the original game was pretty sweet. Played it, needed maybe a little bit more variety, but you know, it was still a really cool game. Then they brought out 3 expansions for this. The first one added in the orange pyramid, which is good but not essential, but it added in more stuff and more tiles than that. Then there was a little one I think called Shadows of Zertal or something, I don't know, but there was one that basically just added more of the starting tiles for, you know, pre-setup, which I always like, where everybody gets a unique setup of resources and combinations. You have to pick a tile at the start. That's always cool, but it was a small expansion that mainly added more of the good stuff. And then they jumped the shark with that, what was it, that pre-Jurassic period one or something? It wasn't even an interesting title. And was there another one since? I literally can't remember if there was another expansion since. That's how forgettable these later expansions are. I've got them, they're in here, but they just didn't really add enough to make me want to bring the game out again. And if anything, they've made the game so bloated that if I want to relearn the rules and get this out again, I've got to trawl through all this. How the hell am I supposed to go through all that and try to figure out how to play this game again? It's insane. And at the end of the day, I'd rather play it, if I'm going to play a long, complex Euro like this, I'd rather play something a bit more thematic. So as much as I've pimped this out, it definitely means I need to fetch a bigger price tag for this in the average game. Part of me wants to keep it because the game is still solid and it's been pimped up. But part of me is like, it's too bloated. You're never going to get it out again over these other games, and you know, you need to let it go. And I think I'm more siding with the Cull pile at this point. You know, this one is a fun game, but it's just too much. There's too much in it. I probably should have just kept the base version, which I gave a 9 out of 10 when it first came out. You know, it really was an excellent game. But I think as each expansion has hit, it's just decreased in my likeness for it. And now it's kind of more a 7. You know, it's a good game and I would play it. But I don't want to be the one to bring it out. I don't want to be the one to teach this. I'd rather be taught again. And even then, there's just other lengthy Euros that I've got that I'd kind of rather play. Still a solid game, but I'm going to have to figure out what I'm doing with this one. You know, I'm going to hang on to it for now, but if something needs to be moved onto this shelf, this is one that's likely to get cold. Sorry, all you tea fans, but you know, I'm starting to get a little bit bored with the tea games. You know, the Books of Time is something that feels like a change of pace, which is good, but the tea games have been drawn out by now, and we need something a little bit different than just moving dice around and doing stuff with them. You know, solid game, but now it's a color.
You're going to burn in a very special level of hell.
This one, the big fish face one, the one with a million covers. That was such a weird gimmick that nobody even cared about, because let's face it, most people have this cover and I think one other. The rest are like super rare. This is testament to these style of, like, not linen, but these the kind of like the linen style covers, I guess, where they scuff like crazy at the top. This thing's got scuff marks all over it, although partially that's because I play this game a lot when I bring it out to game nights and conventions. This is with both expansions. I have done videos on these expansions telling you what, you know, which ones to get and that. I mean, get both of them, but definitely Leviathan. By all means, check out those videos. This was, I think they were the ones that kickstarted my, Beyond the Base Game series, where I talk about expansions. This one has got the folded space insert, which is definitely pretty useful to keep everything in order. But this is a fantastic game. This has been in my top 10 of all time loads. All these cool lords with different special powers, with gorgeous artwork. Some of my favorite artwork in games with these kind of fishmen, mermen, mermaids, you know, those sort of things, from different factions. The sleeves I've bought as an extra from Bombix themselves with these gorgeous covers. I mean, look at that as a sleeve. It's amazing. I've got a play mat for this. We've got the, you know, they've got the little pearls, the ball bearing things, which granted do fall out of these little clamshell dishes a little bit too easily, it must be said. You know, they're a cool little container, but man, the amount of people who keep dropping them because everybody else is butterfingers apparently is definitely one that can get on your nerves. But this one is just so simple. You know, 1 of 3 actions a turn, go to the depths, get more ally cards, go to the council, get stacks of them, or buy these lords with cool special powers and keep going until you've got 7 lords. Unlocking locations with endgame scoring abilities, but the cool thing with this is that those allies are basically fish creatures in your hand that you use as kind of a currency to buy the lords. You can overspend, but the lords have requirements for not only how much value they need, but also the factions that they're with. You know, if you want a red lord, you're probably going to need some red allies, the crabs, but then you might need another couple of factions as well. So I better get some jellyfishes, I better get some, you know, sea lions. You know, sea lions? It's not seahorses. Yeah, that's what it is, sea lions. That's a very different type of ally. But the expansions add to this as well. You've got the corrupted nebulous currency, which is negative points, but it's wild, so it's pretty handy. Leviathan adds a way for you to beat up on these giant monster fishies for extra points. This game is just so cool. I really love this, and I've probably just forgotten how to put the board away after all this. But it's very smooth. It's very simple to teach, even with both expansions in here, which I do pretty regularly. Teach this with both expansions. I mean, Leviathan is an auto-include. Kraken you can put into your heart's content. But I'm always singing the praises of this. This is easily the favourite thing that Bombix has done for me. And, you know, you can tell by the state of my box that it's definitely one I enjoy, even to the point where I've got the Little Abyss conspiracy card game in the other room, which is, yeah, it's mainly just based on it from an artwork perspective, but still another little solid card game filler. But what do you expect? This is a keeper. This is so a keeper. I love this game. It's a 10 out of 10 for me with those expansions included. Probably wouldn't have been as high if it didn't have those and it was just a base game. It really does need Leviathan to uproot it to that level, and Kraken is just more icing on the cake. But I really enjoy this one. Smooth, one of Bruno Cafala's best, and he's one of my favorite designers. He just makes games that give you a decent amount of depth, but with relatively straightforward rules and some interesting settings and themes. I mean, yeah, the theme is not super strong here, but man, it lends itself to some gorgeous artwork, and it's something a little bit different than mining coal and iron. I love this one. It's on my shelf, and it is not going away anytime soon. Now, this one's going to shock a bunch of you. You've probably not heard of it, but you're going to wonder why the hell I have it. And I'm still wondering that to myself, really. This is a game called Kokopelli. At least that's how I'm pronouncing it. And yeah, Queen Games, that's fine. But you're going to notice this little name here. Stefan Feld. What? Yeah, this one is a Stefan Feld game. And it's on my shelf. Luke, what the hell are you on? Because you know me and Stefan Feld games. The guy's lovely, but I hate Stefan Feld games.
Let the hate flow through you.
The Stefan Feld games are either anger-inducingly bad for me, or they are mind-numbingly boring. And I'm sorry, I don't care how much you pimp it up with good artwork or miniatures, Castles of Burgundy is boring. I don't like it.
It's okay, Scott. You motherfucker.
Marrakesh was alright, but even then that's got problems. Bruges, bit of a luck fest with those cards. Not a big fan. What was what's the one where you, what's the one where it punishes you all the in the Year of the Dragon. Hate that game. That one can burn in hell. Notre Dame or whatever, that's okay, but again, these games by Stefan Feld just don't bring anything that I want. They have no theme to draw me in, and they're mostly just dry mechanics, and the mechanics just aren't always that fun. I just don't gel with his games.
I'll give you a piece of
So what the hell is this doing in the collection? Well, Kokopelli is a game that when it was introduced to me, I didn't know who the designer was. And I thought after playing it that this was a Knizia game, because it plays more like a Reiner Knizia game. When I found out it was Feld, I was kind of shocked. This is the Stefan Feld game that doesn't feel like a Stefan Feld game, which probably explains why I like it more. So the idea with this one is that you are playing cards in front of your tableau board, which will essentially be like 4 spaces like extended, but your play area is all 4 spaces in front of you, and the 2 nearest spaces of your left neighbour and the 2 nearest spaces of your right neighbour. So there's a good amount of interaction in this game. But essentially, the cards have got different abilities, and when they're in front of you, you gain the ability that's on that card, and it lets you do various shenanigans. But what you're trying to do is you're essentially trying to stack them up in groups of 4, because once you do, you take the stack away and you claim point tiles, and that's how you win the game. But then once the stack goes, you no longer have that ability left. With the neighbours, you can play onto their stacks and try and finish it for them, and by doing that they get some points, but you get a bonus for finishing it off. So there is an incentive to do that every now and again, not to mention it takes away an ability from them which they might have wanted to keep, and of course gets rid of cards from your hand, because the more you cycle through your deck, the better that is for you points wise. The idea with this is that this has got simple rules but a decent amount of depth, and the idea that this has, from what I can see here we go, 16 different ceremonies, and I think that's just with the base game. So the base game's got 16 ceremonies, and you've got to use, I believe, 10. Yeah, there's 10 ceremonies out of 16. But then because this had a built-in expansion, it then gave me another 9 on top. There is a ton of variety in this game, and it means for a lot of interesting styles of play. But the game itself, not the biggest looker in the world. It is a Stefan Feld game after all, and certainly it is dry as an absolute bone. But I found this one to be intriguing. The card mechanism in this is fun. I like that tough decision that with the cards you've got to decide, right, well, can I extend what's on the neighbour's board to get some freebie points? Is it worth helping them finish the ceremony off? Or shall I open a new one on mine? But you've only got 4 slots, so that's only 4 abilities that you can have, and it's difficult to get rid of, cards once they're down there, or at least not lucrative to do so. So you're going to be stuck with these abilities for a while as you draw more cards. You're like, well, how quickly can I finish the ceremony on my board? If somebody finishes one for you before you wanted the ability to go away, that can be a pain. And you've got to keep an eye on your 2 neighbours to sort of go, well, what are they gunning for? What are they not? And of course, everybody has the play area with the neighbours. So you play this as a 3 or 4 player game, then you get such a cool sense of sort of mild interaction with a very clever card game. And it doesn't feel like a Feld. It's as dry as a Feld, but it feels more like a Knizia in how clever it is. This is probably my favourite Stefan Feld game, and yet most people don't even know this one exists, or at least I never see anybody play it. People are all willing to play Castles of Burgundy and all the rest of the Feld games, or the new City collection. When's everyone pulling one of these out? Well, I'll pull it out if need be. However, that doesn't mean it's necessarily a keeper for life, because I do think it's quite a clever game, but it still hasn't hit the table in a while because of its dryness and that. And so as much as I am saying that you should give this one a look, and I do think it's clever, if I'm going to put this over other games in my collection, this is probably going to be one for the Cull pile. But I hope that it will be low on the Cull pile. I hope that there'll be other games I want to get rid of before this one, because I want to try out some of the other combinations because, as I said, I've got what, like 25 different ceremony cards that I can use, like different categories. I have not even seen all of them because there's a lot of them. And I want to try them out and see what kind of games they offer. And it's just probably been because I haven't been able to fit this one into my timetable that it hasn't been played in a while. But part of me wants to get this one out and just show people that, look, even I can like a Feld game. Even if it may not necessarily be one that stays in my collection for life. But of course, where do you see this one being sold? I mean, it came out, it then disappeared. It gets sold for a pretty overblown price for what it is, and I think that was one of the problems it had. I think it came out and it was priced something like a massive Fantasy Flight game, and it's basically a box full of cards. That was not hurting it. Queen Games do need to work on their price tagging a little bit more. But yeah, all in all, it's still a fun game, but will it be a keeper? That remains to be seen, but surely you're all shocked enough that I have a Feld game in my collection. Ain't that good enough? So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube and let me know in the comments what you think of these games. Have you heard of Kokopelli and Rune Stones? You know, I'd certainly like to know about those two. Has Teotihuacan remained a keeper for you, or are you thinking, yeah, it's a bit bloated as well? And of course, what else was there? An Abyss? Well, it's Abyss. It's brilliant. That's all you can say about it. At least that's for me. So until next time, you can check out the other Keep or Cull episode that I did where I talked about a Fantasy Flight shelf recently. And until next time, remember, regardless if it's a game that you honestly really shouldn't have in your collection, it's still only a game, so why not hang on to it? Take care, and bye for now.